This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
I am Nick, and I have read all of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
And I am Lance, and I have read all of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
Today we will be discussing Season 2, Episode 8 of the AMC series titled Holes. While we will not be spoiling any of the comic and by extension any future plotlines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through Season 2, Episode 8, so pause this and go catch up before you listen to the rest of the episode. You can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can send feedback to g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Preacher or our podcast. Lance, welcome back to Gone to Texas.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lance is here.
It's been a while since we heard from you. I think you were on the season 1 wrap-up that we did last year. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to ask you real quick, just like I forgot to mention this beforehand, but if you could give like a few brief thoughts on where you're at on this season as a whole, just to catch the audience up on how you think things are headed at the moment. How are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I enjoy the show for what it is and little references here and there, and I love the action of this season. I think that's something I asked for in the wrap-up, because the book has a lot of action, and you know, it's such a strange show, and I'm so glad that people are watching it, and you know, someone like you is introduced to it for the first time, so it's I'm just glad that they make shows like this, you know, and you know, ones that are weird and strange and are taking their time building everything. Like, you know, like I think you guys commented, like you'll see someone in an episode and then you won't see them for a couple of weeks, and it'll feel like, you know, like where were they? But then, you know, they've been there all along, kind of thing. So. Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far, and awesome. and I hear from Dominic Cooper that there's a cliffhanger at the end of this.
I did hear that as well.
Yeah, he talked about it, and he's like, "Yeah, comic people will know it, and then everyone's going to be freaking out."
Oh,
about
finally, we'll be clued in.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
interesting. Well, so we did have some listener feedback this week. We also got an iTunes review that I'm going to read right now. This is from a couple weeks back from Zauberlinda on iTunes. Titled, Great Podcasting, Great Team. I love everything about this podcast, from the foot-tappy intro music to Alex's mellifluous voice and his well-thought-out observations and questions. I love Nick's loquacity and book knowledge. I can tell he truly cares about his listeners, and I appreciate his honest critiques, whether good, bad, or indifferent. Love Preacher, love you guys, and look forward to both each week. Thumbs up.
That's lovely. I hope it's not somebody we know.
That username is not familiar to me, so I don't think it's anybody we know, but it could be. I don't know. It's not Lim Tong, so I think we're good.
That's true.
But
it's not Yoop.
Thank you, Zauberlinda, for writing into our show. We're glad that you're listening to us, and we hope we don't disappoint you.
Yeah, those are such polite remarks. Thank you for focusing on our positive qualities.
I had to look up the word mellifluous because I had no idea. Apparently, not like sing-songy, but I guess kind of like a cheerful-ish voice.
Yes, you have a lovely cadence to your voice.
Thank you.
Loquacious is also a nice word. I like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what loquacious means, but I know that I've read something where Stan Lee used it to describe somebody. That, for some reason, I associate that with him.
It's just tending to talk a great deal or talkative.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so it's a nice way of saying it.
Maybe he was describing himself.
It's entirely possible.
I think he described Spider-Man as loquacious or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
That fits pretty well.
Anyway. Yeah, well, somebody who appreciates a good ramble. I like that.
That's good.
Well, stay tuned, stick tuned, as Alex would normally say.
Yes. More feedback. Mike wrote in. I cherry picked once again from everybody's emails. So Mike wrote in. He had a good question. He said Genesis is a side character in the comics, but how do we feel about it in the show?
That's such an awesome point. I'm really glad he raised that.
Yeah.
Mike, by the way, I keep reading all your emails, and then I keep being too busy to reply because here's the thing. My thumbs are as loquacious as my voice, and I just want to bang out these crazy long replies, and I start kind of drafting it in my head, and I'm like, okay, and I read one paragraph, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then I read the next one, and I forget about what I was going to say in the first one, as happens sometimes with this show. But they're so good. Please keep sending.
Absolutely. So yeah, the idea that in the books Genesis is a side character, but in the show we're not really. It's more of a tool that Jesse uses.
I think what he's kind of driving at is that more of the main thrust of the books involves Genesis. Like Genesis is not just a plot device, but like things happen that are due to and caused by Genesis.
Okay. So
it's hard to call Genesis a character.
Is it ever Genesis kind of overriding Jesse? Is that
no?
Lance is shaking his head.
Nope.
No, but Genesis
Just
is
making
like
sure.
Genesis is like has more to do with the story. Like season 1, like Genesis was like really important. Like Genesis mattered, and Genesis is generally always at the forefront of what's going on in season 1. I mean, not always, but whether people know it or not, whatever's happening is in some way related to Genesis. And I think in the book, and I kind of touched on this last week where I said the Grail and is one of many factions that is after Genesis / Jesse. So I guess with one kind of comes the other. And I think that's maybe kind of what Mike is referring to, that it's not just Jesse walking around and once in a while he can use this power. It's like this thing is inside of him and it's driving him forward.
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like it could be part of the reason he's so hell-bent on finding God, but it feels like in the show it's really that he's just kind of stubborn.
Self-motivated.
Yeah, exactly. And this is another reason why I really miss the visual cue of Genesis, because they do the voice thing in the show, which is still kind of neat, and I've gotten used to it, but I miss the red eyes.
Yeah.
Like there's something in the book that's so striking when he uses it, and his eyes just turn red.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
And it's not like Nightcrawler where like he has no pupils. It's just like he still has normal human eyes. It's just
his
red and like the
become
iris.
red.
Yeah, and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating and it's intense and it freaks you out. And
Big
at the
red
same time,
text.
What's that?
Big red text too.
Yeah, and all the letters are in red. It's like you have these nice visual cues which are really cool, and you feel sometimes freaked out by it, and sometimes you feel empowered where you're like, you tell him, Jesse, and like get some shit done. And in the show, it's like the voice is kind of neat, and part of what makes it work is the way the other characters react to it on the show is cool, and watching them just like stand rapt to attention is pretty neat. But I do kind of miss the presence of Genesis a little bit more. So it wasn't something I really necessarily realized I was missing, but I'm really glad Mike mentioned it. Yeah, it's totally valid.
Do you agree with Mike?
Lance? Actually, something I want to add. I'll try to be as vague as possible, but the Genesis kind of also helps Jesse find out certain information.
Okay.
Totally. That's a great point too. Yeah, Genesis, Jesse can kind of tap into Genesis's memory,
knowledge,
so to speak, or knowledge base, because Genesis is like sort of an infant, but it doesn't mean that it's not without. I think the Genesis level of infancy is not like a human infant where you're literally just helpless. It's not helpless. It's just young and not
it's wild and
yes, exactly.
It's a cognizant being, but still young in age.
And for some reason, Jesse is the one who can contain it, because as we saw in the pilot, people were exploding when it was trying them out, and they couldn't handle it. For some reason, Jesse can. He can tame the wild beast.
Right.
He'll break that horse.
Yeah. Mike also wrote in. He wrote in with the context of my Simpsons reference last week. Bart sells his soul to Milhouse for $5. He buys those sponge dinosaurs that are supposed to grow huge and imagines them eating Lisa, but they disappoint. Milhouse trades the soul to the comic book guy for Alf Pogs, and Lisa buys it. Lisa buys it from the comic book guy and returns it to Bart. And he said, I and probably 90% of people watching also thought of that episode. So in case it was on anybody else's, the tip of anybody else's brain, that is the full context of
that's so funny.
Of the Simpsons reference.
The Alf Pogs is my favorite part.
Mike also said, if I had to guess, I think Jesse will realize that he needs his 1% back and has to find the saint to make a deal, which I thought was an interesting idea.
That is an interesting idea, because we keep banking on somebody accidentally letting him out. Yeah. But what if Jesse has to go back and
has to retrieve him?
Yes. Yeah. Has to excavate that ambulance.
Deal with the problem that he created.
Truck. Yeah.
And then finally he said, my review in full of Monday's episode, or the episode we're talking about this week, he said Zagnut and Proinsias. So, yes. More about that later.
Two big takeaways.
Yes. Bruce wrote, and thank you very much, Mike, for writing in. Bruce wrote in and said, I'm starting to wonder if the vampire hunters from way back in the pilot might be linked to the Grail or funded by them or something. If a floating pig was targeted for assassination, I can only imagine how they would react to a vampire. Interesting note.
That is a great point.
Could be true. We should probably go back and watch that scene and see if there's anything tipping. They obviously weren't dressed in the normal
That'd be so funny
but
if they were. Like, if we watched the pilot again and they were all in, like, white suits with red ties, I'd be like, well, shit, how did I miss that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then he said, also, I wanted to point out that I don't think that was meant to be any text-to-speech program. He's talking about at the end of last week's episode of Pig on the newscast that Jesse's watching. There's a robotic voice.
Yeah.
He said, I wanted to point out, I don't think that was meant to be any text-to-speech program. In one of his phone conversations, Starr says to prep the invalid scientist. That voice on TV is probably Stephen Hawking or the Preacher Universe's equivalent.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, so that completely went over my head.
Me too. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, real good.
Wonderful job, Bruce. Thank you very much.
And good job, Bruce, on your analysis of the Preacher screenplays.
Yeah, his podcast, Script Anthology on SoundCloud. Go check that out if you guys haven't checked that out yet.
Is it Archaeology?
Script Archaeology.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Good thing Lance is here.
Yes. Yes.
That's always a good thing when Lance is here.
Yeah. And warning to those who do not know the comic knowledge, there is comic spoiler in that episode. But
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. A lot, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you listen to it?
I did not listen to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But I asked him ahead of time. I was like, could I listen to this? He was like, maybe
You said
not.
that was some authority, and I was like, oh, no.
No.
What'd you
I
do?
haven't spoiled
Oh,
myself
that's awesome.
on anything. So
Yeah, I will have to listen to that as well. I just did so much driving, and I had all these podcasts loaded up, and I just listened to music for the most part.
Yep.
That was stupid.
Yep. So thank you, Bruce, for writing in. We had two other people write in. I made comments about you could write in from Royal Oak, which is right next to us, and I would be just as happy as if you wrote in from India. So thank you to Allison for writing in. Hi from across the street, essentially. And then also Brian wrote in and had a few things. He's also from Royal Oak, or from the Metro Detroit area. So thank you guys for listening. These are people that we don't know personally.
That is awesome.
In the area that found us somehow. So thank you.
Remarkably close.
Yeah. Brian said, I love the introduction of Hair Star. Cannot wait to see him interact with Jesse and crew. The parts of the episode with Jesse and crew could have been excised and not been missed. And I agree that the sideline saint means that it's time to move on. Good to know that Brian agrees with us. And then he also said, just watch Holes. And Frank, that's this week's episode. And frankly, as much as I love the series so far, I was really frustrated with the lack of plot development in this episode. Nothing really happens. Not even place setting for future events. Color me frustrated at this point. Hope this pays off. So we'll get more into our personal feelings, but yeah, I know how I feel, and I will come back around to it after we talk about it a little bit. So thank you, everybody, to writing in. As always, that's g2tpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. It is fantastic. And we'll go on with the recap.
Here we go.
So, episode 8 of season 2, titled Holes. In the teaser, the episode starts off back in hell with a ripped Eugene doing pull-ups with Tracy tattooed across his back. We see the superintendent put on an out-of-order sign on their only source of food, which is a vending machine full of Zagnut bars. In the process, a man gets dragged off to the hole for picking up a marker cap that the superintendent drops. Tyler duct tapes the caveman to the TV with fire on it in order to get some peace and quiet, while Eugene mercifully turns the volume down, and he shoves Hitler for watching him as he did it. And then he takes his place at Tyler's right side. Number 1, Zagnut bars I didn't know were a thing.
Really?
But, do you guys knew what they were?
Oh,
They're
I've
like
had a
old-fashioned candy. Yeah.
Yes.
You can find them at Meijer, I think.
So it's like a peanut butter, flaky peanut butter inside with the toasted coconut on the outside. I used to get like the small versions of those that they have at like the supermarket, and we would call them chicken bones for some reason.
That is weird.
That's just what my mom called them. I should ask her why we did, but awesome that I'm wondering, I guess, who in the Preacher writers room hates Zagnut so much that they're the candy of hell?
It's so funny because I think that it's either they hate it or it's never what you would choose. Like you go to a 7-Eleven or a Meijer or a gas station, and I've had Zagnut. I don't think they're that bad.
Yeah.
But if it's a Zagnut or anything else,
or
I'm probably choosing Kit Kat, Butterfinger, M&M's, Milky Way, whatever. The funny thing is, so all right, I work in the media production industry professionally, and a lot of times crew come up with a weird like Q&A stuff, like if we're at the airport waiting for a flight out or something. And I've worked with a lot of the same people over the years. And one time we were literally sitting at an airport waiting to catch a flight back to Detroit. And I asked one person at one point, I was like, what's your favorite, like, what's your favorite candy bar or stuff like that, just to pass the time or whatever. And so we actually had this long, in-depth conversation of what is the best candy bar. And this one guy, his name is also Nick, who is hysterical. He went on this like rant about all these different candies that people were throwing out with literally what their personal favorite candy bar was. And he was like, no, that's dumb because this kind of thing. But I mentioned Butterfinger as mine, and he was like, you blew my mind. And like we kept talking, he goes, I forgot about Butterfingers. But this one guy was like, Zagnut. And dead serious. And he was like, Zagnut is my favorite candy. And he was like, what's a Zagnut? Like multiple people reacted like, what is a Zagnut?
Yeah.
He was like, he looked at them like they were weird. He's like, you guys have never had a Zagnut? And they're like, no, what is that? And so when I see it, I laugh because I think of him and how he would grab the Zagnut. So if he were in this version of hell, he'd be like, you know what?
All right.
I could deal.
That's the only sustenance that we get down here.
I know. It's like, and they're weird candy bars are funny because they're one of those things like when you see something that was rare, like you remember Neckos?
Yep.
If I saw a Necco today, I would start laughing and I would buy it because what are the odds? Or like a Score
bar.
You ever see a Score?
Yeah.
Like those are few and far between, I feel like today.
Yeah.
And I'm not like an authority on candy bars, but I've had a Zagnut.
So the choice of Zagnut was good.
Oh, it was hysterical.
Mike's email makes me wonder, were Zagnuts anywhere in the comic?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if his 2-word review.
No, I just think it's one of those funny things that they just hit the nail on the head. And we talked about this exact point last week that a lot of these jokes are funny because they come and they go really quick.
Yeah.
And they don't overstay their welcome, which is, in my opinion, the best kind of joke is something that gets in and gets out and it knows exactly how long it needs to be. Yeah. Because being funny is only half the battle. You've got to know just how long to be funny for, you know what I mean?
You got to have the comedic timing.
Right. And I was just listening today to a review for They Came Together, which is a movie that I know you and I both love. Have you seen They Came Together, Lance?
I have not.
Oh, boy. You would love it because you like Wet Hot and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right?
I do. The State and the Stella.
Okay.
Same guys, essentially.
Yeah.
But in the review, somebody was like, so what kind of humor is it? And he's like, well, it's David Wayne and Michael Showalter. And he's like, where they specialize in that real absurdist humor. And he said, so it's kind of a parody of rom-coms. And somebody else on the show asked, so it's not like those like, remember Meet the Spartans and all that crap that was considered parody that came out for that period? And he's like, no, it's parody in like the way that like Airplane is parody. He's like, where it's a million jokes a minute and not all of them land, but you're just laughing so constantly that it's good. Yeah. Where even jokes that wouldn't normally work, they work because they're just sandwiched between other amazing jokes. Anyway, Lance, you should absolutely see it. So, and all of anybody who hasn't seen,
I'm intrigued now.
They Came Together. If you like Wet Hot American Summer, you'll love it. And
if you laugh really hard at Zagnuts, go watch They Came Together.
Oh, yeah. And if anything, They Came Together is more accessible than Wet Hot American Summer because it stars Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler now that they're established, but it also is like a direct send-up of some very like obvious stuff. Yeah. Like You've Got Mail and that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean those are bad, but it's just it does it so well that it's hilarious.
For sure. I guess we saw a little more hell on this episode, and I think Nick and I talked previously about where Eugene could be headed, and I think we maybe comic spoiled a few things. But I think we can kind of wrap that up in saying it seems like Eugene is headed towards where he is in the comics.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that while we watched this episode. Who floated those theories? It was one of our listeners was kind of floated the theory that maybe this is putting Eugene down the path where he needs to wind up.
I think we talked about it, and then maybe it kind of grew in conversations with some emails. But
I think one of our listeners, and it was probably Mike, but I can't recall exactly who it was, mentioned like maybe this whole hell experience is going to put Eugene down the path. And I was like, oh, that was a great theory. But anyway, I thought about that while I was watching this episode, and I was like, that's 100% accurate, I think.
Oh, good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it now.
Is that what
I'm connecting the dots.
Yeah, because we were kind of talking about on the show how he's so good. And I was like, he's like the purest, sweetest boy. And I was like, how is he ever going to be like not that? And now we're watching and I'm like, okay, I see how change for the worse is possible for Eugene now. Yeah. Also, partially because he's getting to experience these really vivid, terrible things, but also it's sort of a survival situation now where like in order to not be tortured, you will do bad things, and eventually you might just become bad.
Yeah,
It's scary. Yeah.
Once again, I enjoyed the very harsh lighting in Hell, especially with Eugene doing the pull-ups on the like rafter or whatever.
That was hilarious.
It was pretty good. I wasn't expecting it to be him, and I couldn't even read the Tracy for some reason until he had gotten down. So it was just funny to me.
That was funny, and I wondered. I was like, "Is that Ian Coletti?" I'm like, "Is he that jacked?"
Yeah,
for some reason.
Yeah,
like, It might be. I don't know. I know nothing about him. So I
think it probably is, but I don't know. We've just seen him as such like an innocent boy face kind of person that to see him with actual tone is really strange.
I looked him up. Does he have any other history? Like because he's not on Wikipedia, and with the scene later, I was thinking, does he like a theater background or something?
I remember when he was cast, I looked him up on IMDb, and I was like, because I saw it, and this was incidental on the part of whichever website it was that ran the story, but they were like, Ian Coletti cast in Preacher as if he was somebody, and I was like, who's that? And I looked him up, and he had been in just a couple things, but I was like, the way the headline was written was as though somebody huge was cast, and it may have been like a Reddit user submitting something, but I was like, who cares?
I don't think he necessarily he's got some credits going back to like 2006, but it's nothing too big.
He's fantastic.
Yeah,
he's great.
And he's great.
He's great. Made that character, really sympathetic.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then let's see, anything else in Hell? I'm really enjoying the stepping on eggshells that everybody's doing, but I also I guess not everybody, but between Eugene and also we see Samurai Guy is what he's credited as, getting dragged away for picking up that marker cap. They're showing these people in Hell that do have these tendencies to do nice things for each other. And I guess picking up a marker cap, like if anybody dropped one in front of me, I would probably pick it up to give it back to them.
Yeah.
But like the idea that gets you punished in Hell, I don't know. It's just it kind of like
pretty basic.
Yeah. It seems like, well, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it's just kind of like watching Eugene try to secretly turn the volume down on the TV. It's working for me, and I don't necessarily know why, but I find it pretty entertaining. So
the notion of getting punished for doing good things in Hell is weird. Like you're supposed to be sent to Hell as punishment
as
for
atonement
for doing bad things, right? And it's kind of strange that even like the notion of what Hell is about is like sort of skewed.
It's not rehabilitation in any kind of way. It's more of for some reason they're reinforcing the terrible behavior.
Bad behavior. Yeah,
they want to torture you, but they're not even torturing you that much. They're just keeping you like there.
I guess that's the thing that we don't really know is like, are they only in that group part because the projector rooms are broken?
Yeah,
like,
they did say that pretty explicitly. Like once they're up and running, you're going back.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if they're all in their rooms most of the time, like we don't know the day to day. Like maybe they leave the projector room and go back to the bunk. I don't know. Not that it matters really, but it kind of, I don't know.
It's true. I guess if it was literally like 24/7, you're reliving that exact moment. I wonder like if going mad eventually is the ultimate punishment, or if in a way it's almost a release, because I don't know what it's like to go insane, but I'd imagine if you break from reality, it's almost like sort of a release from being there in the moment and being cognizant of what's happening.
Yeah.
So like when I would imagine Hell being a little bit almost more like Eugene's whole experience, where like that was torture to him. The rest was just like annoying almost. He was like, yeah, I know what I did and it was stupid, but like, you know what I mean? Like he didn't come out of that like, oh my God, no. Like he just kind of was like, oh, here I am. This is a pretty shitty situation, I guess. But he was still kind of Eugene.
Yeah. It hadn't broken him at all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Nobody even, not that many of them seem particularly broken either. For the most part, they're like, you know what I mean? I don't know. They're just kind of like, we're doing our time, and like, just keep your head down and don't be nice and you'll be all right. Like Hitler's like coaching him.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I guess we get a little bit more from Hitler later on.
I have a question too about the warden or supervisor. What do you think is the deal with her voice? Have you guys noticed the way it tends to?
That it modulates.
It does. Do you think that they are projections as well? That they're not real? Like they're either, like if hell is sort of malfunctioning right now. Do you think the voice modulation is because something is off in like even the function and performance of her / it?
That's entirely possible.
Yeah,
but I can't connect the dots and see what the worth of that would be.
I can't either, but I was curious because her voice was doing that, and I was like, okay, it's not like there didn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason to which words it was happening. It would happen
at like, most of the time at the end of sentences. But
it was towards like the second half of a sentence. Yeah. But I don't know. I just thought it was
and only her, right? Like, well, she's really superintendent.
She's the only superior talking, really. But
I don't know. I was curious.
Yeah. It's I think I called it out in like the first time we met her, but I don't like it.
Well, Hitler mentions that he used to be like a supervisor there, and he doesn't really say.
We used to like what he
used to be a janitor.
Yeah. He had his run of the place. Like, well, good for you.
Did his job get taken by a machine? Did technology replace?
I can't. I don't remember that conversation well enough. I don't think we got enough context to figure out why he's no longer.
The show keeps doing this with Hitler. It keeps like raising these potential points of interest and then like leaving you hanging. And I'm like, why are you making me interested in Hitler? I'm still struggling with this in this show. I'm like, don't. The only thing I really want to know is his scene. Like, what supposedly is the moment that turned him...
Is it him being the laughing stock of the art gallery table or whatever?
Maybe. I don't know. I want to see the rest of that scene, but I don't think I'm gonna. And it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. The only other thing in the teaser that I noted was that it seems like Eugene is like I noted that Eugene takes his place at Tyler's right side. Like it seems like Tyler is very clearly the alpha male that's present in the room. And Eugene seems to have at least kind of found his place in the hierarchy or something like that. But and then the only other thing is the idea of wiping your ass with duct tape is terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Any other thoughts on the teaser?
Oh, I guess this was later in the episode, but the other detail on how that made me laugh was the idea of flat basketballs. Like I was like, that's funny. That would be annoying. That would wear on me.
Yeah.
Hitler was reading he was doing a crossword book, which I just thought was kind of funny. Like it's like you're in a waiting room somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned earlier on in one of the episodes that all the crosswords are filled in already.
Oh, that's what it is.
The idea that all they have in hell is just filled in crosswords.
Oh, so they can't do anything with them.
So the best you can do is like quiz somebody.
All right. Act 1, Cassidy is standing in a nursery over a newborn Denis in 1946, singing Scarlet the Harlot and taking a swig out of his flask as he promises to be the best dad in the world. Cut to modern day where Cass is watching over Denis in his sleep, unwilling to bite him to give him immortality. Tulip is still awake at 2:30 in the morning because of her nightmares, and Cassidy tries to tell her to go to bed, but she picks up her jacket and heads out the door. How did you comic readers enjoy seeing some Cassidy from 1946?
Well,
I thought it was great because I reread the last 7 or 8 issues of the comic, and he does mention that he has kids there, and that he's like somebody's like Jesse says to him like, never knew you had a kid, and he's like, I've got a couple of them, so and he's like but it's just a tragic thing.
Yeah.
So it's cool seeing this.
It is. It's a cool scene. My only beef with it was that he looks the exact same.
Yeah.
I wanted because you do in the book, you do see Cassidy through the years, and his appearance does change over time.
Yeah.
Like he looks period accurate to whatever era it is. Like he's always in style for the most part, so to speak.
Sure.
I feel like I recall them in Buffy showing Spike, who looks like Billy Idol during the series at certain time, like where he acquires his Billy Idol jacket in the 70s, like in the 70s and 80s. So like seeing that kind of thing with Cassidy, I think would be great.
Right. And Cassidy, actually, it's funny because he is kind of like that as well in the books. He has like the same denim vest on all the time.
Yeah.
And the sunglasses, and he's got like some earrings. He's definitely like kind of 80s out, kind of punk rockish, kind of a meld of those two worlds. And that's where you meet him, and that's the Cassidy you know. But then when you see him in the past, he definitely looks different.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing where I was really excited when I saw the 1946, and I was like, cool. And I saw him, and I was like, well, that was all right.
Yeah, he's in like a leather jacket, but
he's
that's
like
really
a biker or something.
Yeah, and he's got like the same hair and the same stubble. And like if they had just combed his hair over a bit
slicked his hair back
and shave him just for an episode or two, or I understand that he has to have the same appearance. Yeah, exactly. But still, do it. Shoot it out of shoot it at the end of the season or at the beginning, just to give me that. Because I thought that little extra bit of effort would have made the transformation of both of them much more striking. Because if you saw a well-intentioned Cassidy, like as a clean-cut guy, contrasted with what we know,
the junkie.
Unless the message is that even in 1946, he keeps saying he's still the same old Cass, but he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be great, and then takes a nip from his flask, and you're like, well, he was just the same as then.
Yeah.
But the age at which you are turned, I'm sure, is the age that you ride out. So even if he did turn Denis now, he's an old man. He's always going to be an old man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Cassidy, if you were gonna spitball his age, you'd probably say he's around 30s, in his early 30s or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if that was 1946,
curious
how long he's been around for. Was he even a vampire in 1946?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Who knows?
I'm curious. It was a cool scene.
Yeah. Scarlet the Harlot. I tried to find more about it. It appears there's a folk song from the 1800s called Charlotte the Harlot. There's also an Iron Maiden song by the same title. So maybe I'm wondering if they had to tweak it a little bit to. I don't know why they would have to. I don't know why they chose to kind of change it, but
maybe
it's on Reddit.
Maybe it's a regional thing.
Yeah, I guess it could be.
The lyrics were changed. It does say that.
Yeah. So the original folk song is Charlotte the Harlot, and there's a few people that have recorded versions of it, and it's like even melody wise, it seemed a little different too, because I went to listen to some of it, but I just thought that was interesting.
Maybe it's like the playground version, like where like Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, that kind of thing.
That's true.
And maybe that's the only version Cassidy knows because he's Cassidy.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's his idea of like a sweet nursery rhyme, even though it's like this gross thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Cassidy real quick in this Act 1?
Did Denis talk through the translator?
Not yet.
No, okay.
But yeah, so we do see Cassidy trying to translate to Denis, at least. So he's putting in more of an effort to communicate with his son.
Yeah.
Which is good. Maybe seeing those people in the hospital in the last episode kind of woke him up a little bit to be like, all right, I need to put in some effort now if I'm going to do it at all.
Right. Yeah. If it's whether it's for his sake or for Denis is hard to tell.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just having this moment of like, I gotta at least see this through for him.
Yeah.
Which will probably come up again at the end of the episode.
But I mean, we can hop ahead to the point where Denis.
Oh no, that's okay.
Okay, yeah. But the only other thing was Tulip. Tulip still kind of catatonic in her state. That's how she's interacting with the world, kind of like on her own track. But we can talk more about that later. So, Act 2. The Grail appear to be surveilling Jesse and the crew from inside their apartment complex. Cassidy asks Jesse if he could use the word to help Denis, but Jesse decides not to do that. On his way out the door to the dork docks, Tulip walks up asking if she can join him at Circuit Works. And Jesse hands the video over to the dork docks as Tulip orders a new fridge for Denis' apartment. Back in hell, Samurai Guy gets dropped off at the main cell after being in the hole for good behavior. The superintendent announces they know someone is there who shouldn't be there, and that is what is causing the technical issues.
That's why hell's on the fritz.
Yes. So the Grail are observing Jesse in the apartment. Pretty cool. We get some more of Featherstone and Hoover. He's credited as F.J. Hoover.
F.J. Hoover. Okay.
Good old Hoover.
Yeah.
I can't wait for. Yeah, he seems perfect.
He's picking up on the good stuff that is Hoover in the books. He's picking up on it.
The way even just his little like kind of pseudo bumbling line to her is so good. I was like, this is great.
Yeah. His kind of I wouldn't call it disinterest in the mission, but kind of like
he's just kind of a regular guy.
Yeah.
Like he's
aloof to like the seriousness of everything. He's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah,
he's
that's
like,
a
this
great-
is a job.
It's a job.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
pretty good.
Yeah, the contrast between him and Featherstone in the books is so funny. And it's not even that Featherstone is like she's a little bit more of a badass in the show. Like, she's a little bit more of an agent, like a field agent. In the show, she's more like Star's sort of assistant / like scheduler.
Yeah.
She kind of like keeps him on task, and like she's kind of his logistics person.
But she also, I mean, she was in the fields at the bar where she met Jesse.
I think you mean in the book she was like
Yeah.
scheduler.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, and that's what I said. In the show, she's more of a field agent.
Okay, I'm sorry.
In the books, she's more of like a logistics person.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She gets some shit done, but behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and Hoover is just kind of he's Hoover. He's perfect in the show.
Yeah.
He's really good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see more of them.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that before we move on to the other topics here?
No.
So yeah, the dork docs. Good to know that that's actual terminology in the world and not just
Yeah.
not just
Slang.
Cassidy's name for Best Buy.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, Tulip gets the fridge, and then obviously she's like, yeah, you don't need me here for that tape thing, do you? Like Jesse was so excited for her to want to come along, but then she just completely dismisses it like she was doing her own thing.
That was so harsh.
For sure.
That interaction in the stairwell alone, I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is literally like two people passing each other on the downslope of their relationship. Like as like one is clearly standing above the other.
Yep.
And they were on opposite sides. I mean, I was like, this is making me sick. It's a sad
good.
episode, actually.
Yeah.
Top to bottom.
Yeah.
This episode is a great big fat wet bummer.
Yeah.
And that scene, I was just like, I felt bummed out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is rough to watch. These two characters who are so connected, and yet they're just they can't figure out what's wrong. Neither of them.
Yeah, they're both kind of like on their own. They can't both be on the same wavelength right now, and it's like the slow. I like John Mayer. He has a song called "Slow Dancing in a Burning Room," and that is exactly what they're doing right now. Which I think that's a perfect descriptor for that point in a relationship.
Sure.
So, any complaints about my John Mayer liking, please send them to JohnD1703 on Twitter.com.
Oh, okay. This is a call to action.
Yes.
If you don't like John Mayer,
Let me know.
and you don't like the fact that Alex does like John Mayer. John Mayer's an immensely talented musician.
He is.
Oh,
yes.
I don't necessarily love all of his songs, but that is a good song.
Yeah.
But John Mayer Trio is boss. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely.
That shit is dope. And John Mayer's ability to photobomb people is just
legendary.
bar none.
Cool.
The best.
So
there was something else in this bit. Cassidy's kind of disinterest in Jesse wanting to go to take him up on his idea was really funny, because I feel like in that moment Cassidy knows it's a stupid thing to do. Like he kind of has this look on his face like, oh, you're seriously gonna do that? Like that was just me doing my thing. You know what I mean? Like he kind of had this look. It's partially that he's worried about.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep calling him Denis because it's just gonna happen.
That's fine.
Denis.
I'll call him Denis.
He's clearly like hung up on that, and he's dealing with his own stuff. But when Cassidy tells him what he's gonna do, the way Cassidy kind of looks back at him is kind of like, okay, like if you think that
I didn't get
the
that.
way he goes, oh yeah, like they do on the shows. It's a good idea. I'm glad I thought of it.
He's such a good friend that he'll just be like, yeah, you do that,
See if it works.
Yeah.
But
and then like Jesse gives him like a pat on the shoulder. It's like, yep, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, it was definitely like Cass seems a little more hip to knowing that that's stupid. Like that's a stupid idea, even though it would have worked apparently according to the show.
Yeah.
But just like ever suggesting that anything from a CSI type show could be applied to anything in real life is outrageous.
Yeah, like I was fully expecting Jesse to walk up there and say that, and for them to be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, and they do kind of exchange a look of like, okay, that's stupid, but we'll try. Mm-hmm. And then they're jazzed when they do it because they didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing we'll talk about. But yeah, in that moment, Cassidy seemed to kind of almost be in this position of like, wow, Jesse's that desperate. This is the kind of idea that season 1 Jesse would have laughed at and be like, that's TV. That's not how guns work. That's not how cameras work. But now he's so at the end of his rope that he's like, I'm gonna go to Best Buy and ask their nerds to try the It's such an awful idea.
Yeah,
and it's like he's like, this is my only shot.
Yeah, you'd be better off handing out pamphlets on the corner, like "Seen God, call this number." You know what I mean? Like it's such a desperate grab that I think that the reason it struck me was because Cassidy's talking to him, but he's just watching Denis, and then like when Cassidy said or Jesse says that, that's when he kind of turns back and is like, "Oh yeah, like the show, like the shows, yeah." Do that. It was good.
I didn't see that at all, but I can definitely.
This whole act I thought was very good.
Yeah.
So, do you want to comment on what you thought Cassidy was going to ask him to do?
Well, and I guess
that's a great question.
Yeah, the idea that that Jesse could somehow use the word to help Denis, like.
Yeah, I was thinking that he was going to actually ask him to forget Cassidy. Mm-hmm. That was my first guess.
That's what
that it was going to be some sort of
Ah.
memory tampering, like.
Yep.
Forget. I didn't think he was going to tell him to like just die and like that he would die, but I was thinking it was going to be like some sort of mind erasure.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think because it would ease his suffering. I think that's his angle with Jesse, but I think he wants to stop being asked to turn him. Like he wants to be with him and be there, but I think he's tired of the temptation of like.
Well, and I think it's kind of like it would be. It's the burden off of Cassidy.
Yes.
In full, in like a guilty, selfish way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, someone else gets to do it. Like that's the thing. Like Cass could just put a bullet in Dennis's head. You know what I mean? I'm not saying literally do that, but in order to ease his suffering, like you could somehow step in and do something, but he wants somebody else to fix it for him.
Yeah.
Which I think is an important thing to note.
Mm-hmm.
Like failure to not failure, but an attempt to pass some sort of responsibility onto somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Lance, did you have any other?
No,
potential?
that's pretty much what I thought, because I think Cass just needs a relief, and he's looking to have this guy with this immense power to do it, and then he turns him down, and then, so now like what's going to happen between them? Like, you don't do this for me, maybe I won't do something for you next time.
Yeah,
that might
true.
be what it comes to.
And I guess kind of like my first impression, my surface level, because I apparently didn't think about this very much. I was just kind of wondering, like, what would Denis do if Jesse just told him to get better? Like, what would that like? How would that backfire? I guess is the question.
Yeah,
but not that I would expect it to necessarily go anywhere or do anything helpful, but. I wonder what that would look like.
Would he wind up looking like Deadpool, where like he's just his cells are continuously regenerating, so it's horrifying.
Does it give him healing factor?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, I definitely took it as like a sort of a negative thing.
Yeah,
but I was curious too, and that's a good point about the tit for tat kind of thing. Like Jesse is definitely a taker. Like he's not a giver in this show.
Yeah.
He takes and takes and takes and takes, and he's not thinking about anybody else, which is interesting.
I like how you guys keep bringing up the Dominic Cooper interpretation, because it's way different. And there's a quote I read in the books where Jesse's like, all you got to do is be a man, shoot straight, do the right thing, and this Jesse is not really at the forefront of his mind.
I think he would say that to somebody else, but he certainly wouldn't take his own medicine.
He has no self-awareness, I think, is the problem. Like in his mind, he's always doing the right thing, but he's not. And that's definitely the biggest contrast against the books, aside from the hairdo, is he's very rarely doing the right thing in the show. And in the book, even in the book, he's not always, but he thinks it's right, and you can see his point of view in the book.
Sure.
Like you can get behind him most of the time and be like, yeah. But again, it's part of that characterization that John Wayne that he has going with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm glad you cited that, pretty much that exact line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's kind of like that in season 1. Like we're definitely seeing like a darker side to him in this whole season.
Yeah. And then we did get a little bit more out of Hell here. The fact that Eugene being there is an unexpected thing, so they're not getting the amount of power out of their generator that they need.
I like the idea that there's this very specific algorithm that runs Hell. He threw it off by 0.00001. One soul, one more soul in Hell, and everything's just a little bit out of balance. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wonder what the Saint where he may figure into some sort of balance as well. Like
I guess that's true. Like if he's gone, then why wouldn't?
Well, if he's gone, and also just even, I wonder what the sort of weird proportioning of people's souls flying around is doing to the cosmic balance as well.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Act 2? Act 3, Hitler tells Eugene that hell is much worse than what he's actually seen, and that the superintendent won't actually let anybody out if they find out who should not be there. Hitler trips a nun to trick Eugene into helping her up, which causes the superintendent to come collect him to be punished. And then also Cassidy and Tulip talk about the blessings and curses of being a vampire. So
there you go.
Yeah. Once again, we get like Hitler being like the sympathetic, like, I'm going to help you out, kind of like, you need to understand this sort of thing.
I think I understand what he's after now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think this is kind of like redemption for Hitler?
No. Sorry, I was just licked by your dog under the table. Hey, Lizzie. No, I think so. I mean, Hitler later in the episode is. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of hard to not break it up.
Yeah,
the right way. It almost makes me want to do it the way I was doing Westworld, where I combine everything into one. But
the tripping and nun was funny.
Yeah. Why? And we still don't know why that nun.
Why is there?
We will never know why that nun is in hell. But it's
there's like a soldier in hell too.
Yeah,
and
he tripped a hell nun.
Yeah.
We did in this act. We did get to find out that the woman who looks like she's from like the 50s, like burned her children alive because they wouldn't shut up. Essentially, which is terrible.
Yep,
so scary. Have you guys seen that Cracked article? That's like people who did crimes that would make Hannibal Lecter look.
No.
God, what an imbecile do I sound like? People who did crimes. What did I say a couple episodes ago?
That might be a Cracked article.
That's
title,
true. Maybe I'm just quoting it directly. I forgot what I said a couple episodes ago. That was the stupidest thing. It was so funny.
I think I edited it out for you.
Oh, man.
So it's gone.
I mean, we laughed about it.
Yeah,
so.
we did.
All right. You'll never know my mistakes.
I want to make us appear smart, even if we're not.
Thank you. Maybe I should listen to the episodes more than I have recently. Yeah, but there was some cracked article that said it pointed out all these real life like killers that did these like insane things. Some of them were like European. They were things that we probably wouldn't hear just with our media state in general. But some of these crimes and there were like links to like articles, and I actually followed some of them to like read some of the stuff. And some of the stuff that people do is horrifying, like
absolutely.
that you couldn't even imagine. And the one was this one woman. I forgot the exact extent of her crimes, but she definitely killed her kids, and she killed she continually remarried and murdered like her husbands and like children, and somehow got away with it like 3 or 4 times or something crazy. But she like boiled them and stuff too. Like I mean, the details of it were so grisly. I forgot which country she was in or where she was in, but her like everything involving her death and burial and everything was like supervised to ensure that she was dead. Like. This person was
like Rasputin.
Yes. Yeah. This person was so evil that like the governing bodies went out of their way to be sure that she was dead. Like it was crazy. But anyway, for some reason when I saw that nun, that's what I thought of. I was like, yeah, this and the 50s woman who said when she burned her kids, I was like, yeah, there's this kind of stuff people do that they get away with it for a time until they don't.
Yeah,
it's just nuts.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on what happened in hell here? There's more to come later, but.
Did the music, what do you guys think of that music when he kind of realizes like, oh, they're watching me?
I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. It's kind of really intense music.
Are you just saying the music was good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Dave Porter.
Yeah, Dave Porter, who also did Breaking Bad and does Better Call Saul as well. He's fantastic.
This is the disadvantage. Sometimes I watch these on my iPad because it's easy, and that's the disadvantage. Is the audio just isn't quite as good. Like sometimes I even have the captions on.
Oh yeah.
Versus watching it on my TV.
Yeah, usually on my second viewing I turn on captions.
Actually, one time, and I think it was the episode where Tulip is having the nightmare about being up at night and like the doors open and then the window. I was watching that one at night on my iPad with my headphones, and it was so awesome. So I should the sound, everything in that episode was great, involving like audio, and so I should probably just do that more often.
Yeah. But yeah, the other thing I did write down the direct quote, and Hitler says, "Hell is more than Zagnuts and flat basketballs," which I thought was pretty good.
It was good.
going back to Cassidy and Tulip kind of have this conversation about like what they
what if they would want to be
like would she want to be a vampire essentially and she's like, oh, I mean, it sounds great, nothing can hurt you. And then he's kind of like, well, yeah, but I used to love beaches and I can't remember the last time I've been to a beach essentially. Like that.
It's such a simple thing, that everybody gets to enjoy, but not him.
You take for granted.
And he has to live, through it for so long. Yeah. And I'm sure every day he gets reminded of it. And the longer you live, the worse it becomes. So I just like the speech that he made. You know? And he said, like, drugs don't even work.
Yeah, the drugs don't work as good as they used to.
So just what a terrible... the guy was pretty chipper most of the time, making jokes about foreskin and all that. But, there's some soul behind there that he's suffering.
Yeah.
It's that front, man. That mask that he wears is good. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. And I liked that Tulip is... I don't think... It's not that she's stupid. She just doesn't care enough to put any thought into it right now. But the way she says, nothing can hurt you. And he kind of just goes, oh, it still hurts. Like, things still hurt. I'm sure getting shot hurts the exact same as it would,
Yes.
But she's kind of like, well, but her point is valid. Yeah, you can't die. So the fear, of jumping out of a plane is diminished.
Yeah.
Like, will it still hurt you? Absolutely. The fear of pain is very real, obviously. But the knowledge that you will heal if you've got blood and friends at the ready to help you with it, obviously that does, I'm sure, reduce it somewhat. But the idea that you feel no pain is a little ridiculous. But I did the beach thing was very striking because I think that's something, even if you don't like the beach, you understand the appeal, I think. Like people, like, even when she's like, I hate the beach, like, it's like, but if you couldn't go, you would miss it, I think. And, depending on where you live, especially, like, we're very fortunate to be surrounded by water in Michigan. So we have beaches everywhere and lakes everywhere. So I think that the notion of not being able to just go up north, even just to drive in the daylight with the window down and the breeze, it's like, I mean, he's in the car with them during the day, but he's like totally covered in the back seat. Like, you couldn't,
not being able to feel the sun on your skin. I think
exactly. For sure. It was perfect writing, perfect thing to hone in on.
Yeah. Act 4, we get the Dork Docs. They misunderstood Jesse's request and accidentally erased the serial number that was on the gun, but Jesse notices a reflection in the slate that Mark Herlick is holding. Tulip patches up the Saints bullet holes in all the apartments, and Eugene gets thrown into the hole, which has the extrapolator. He re-experiences his worst moment with Tracy, but this time she's receptive to his kiss, except for the fact that she's already promised herself to God in the form of Jesse. Eugene turns the gun on himself instead.
Say that first part again.
With the Dork Docs?
With the serial number.
They misunderstood Jesse and accidentally erased the serial number on the gun.
That's not what I got.
I think it wasn't on there to begin with.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And then they were like, dude, it's not on there. You're good. You're in the clear.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the gun was scrubbed.
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Because I was like, they would just hit Control Z and like.
And I didn't. I had logicked it away in my head, like, oh, they don't have the original. I don't know. That was stupid.
Because they were like in on it. They were like,
bro.
Yeah.
They're not there.
Yeah.
I'm winking for those.
We haven't seen it. We don't see anything. Yeah.
That's what they were. Yeah, they were kind of confirming, and they're like you want to cover your ass. Like they were saying, like he was the one with the gun. Yeah.
The way that the image looked to me looked so strange because it looked like they put like a black box over that.
Like it was
part
pixelated.
Of the gun. It didn't look the way that I would naturally expect it to look. Which is why for some reason I felt like they had stripped it.
They had dork doctored it.
Yes, but that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, so. I think that they were just telling him.
I'm glad you could correct that before anybody emailed in and was like, Alex is an idiot. 1 star.
Alex doesn't know about illegal things.
Alex is no longer mellifluous. So
mellifluous Alex.
So
that's how we're going to introduce ourselves going forward. Mellifluous Alex and loquacious Nick. And now we need an amazing descriptor for Lance too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let someone write in.
Yeah.
And,
there we go.
I can't get my own,
That's
adjective.
true. You can't. Give yourself.
We need Zalber Linda to write in and let us know. Yeah. Well, give us an adjective.
We need to have Lance on the show more often. I think it's just the solution, so you can get to know Lance as well as we know him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Act 4, here we go. There's no number on the gun.
Yes.
Which sucks. But the reflection in the slate, we're going to talk about that more later on. But yeah, so Jesse doesn't get anything out of this situation, which I think personally is the most frustrating part of this episode. The fact that Jesse goes literally backwards, essentially.
Yeah.
Is not. That was what I didn't like the most here. But yeah, Tula patching up the Saints' bullet holes. Part of me wondered if like doing this was going to give her some kind of closure on the situation, but I don't really know that that's.
I think
true.
that's kind of the metaphor they're going for, that she's literally patching
herself,
patching some holes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And or is it just covering something up, but the hole is still there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Just putting the spackle over it, it's still underneath. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. And then the extrapolator. Yeah, the revisiting the scene with Tracy, I think they did a pretty fantastic job with it.
Oh yeah.
It's like the one I wrote here in my notes that they sing Closing Time by Semisonic together, and then I put in parentheses Alex's personal hell because they're all over the place in terms of the key that they use to sing the song. Because it was kind of horrendous, but it was still hilarious to me, at least.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a kind of sweet thing two idiot kids would
high
do.
school kids.
You know, exactly.
And like an after school special.
Yeah, definitely. In an extremely private moment.
Yes. But yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on the extrapolator and the whole?
The extrapolator, here's the thing. I really liked this episode, but a lot of the stuff that happened in it, I saw, if you've seen movies before, you saw all of this stuff coming.
Yeah.
Like Jesse's quest to the circuit
works. Dork Docs.
I was like, he's not going to find it. Like, I just knew. I was like, he's not going to get anything out of this. It's not going to...
Yeah.
Like, I never for a second did I think that would be fruitful in any way. I didn't even expect the little watermark on the DVD at the end. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I was like, it kind of confirmed my suspicion, you know what I mean? And then what do they call it again?
The extrapolator?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So just based on the name alone, I was like, okay, I know. Now this is going where I thought hell would be to start. It was like showing you a what if, rather than this is what happened, but this is what could have happened and didn't.
Yeah.
The only thing that immediately stands out in my mind, man, Dominic Cooper is just the king. That look on his face at the climax, if you will, of that scene was hysterical.
Yeah.
I was like, look at that mug. He's mugging so hard for the camera, and it made me laugh so much.
Yeah.
That entire sequence, like especially that last bit, just felt so disgusting to me.
It was horrifying, and what made it so bad was the fact that he was able to influence the scene to a degree until the train really took off on the tracks, and they would not listen to him. Like he no longer had any power. He was an observer again. Mm-hmm. So at first, that was the part that confused me, because at first he was like a participant, where he was like, "Wait, you're not mad?" And like he almost realized like, "Oh my God, things could be different." And then
it's like once the extrapolator got to the point where it was like, we're going to extrapolate. What if she accepted this kiss?
Yes.
Like once he kisses her reaction is like, this is all new, and from there on out he's free to react to the situation happening around
until a point, and essentially where she was reacting to him, and then so was Jesse when Jesse comes out of the bathroom, and they're talking. Like, it's actually like an exchange where it's that Jesse is reacting to him, but then it just like goes on this like scripted sequence sort of, and they're not listening to him, they're not doing any, they're just proceeding, and the extrapolator is like, okay, this is where it is. I can apply more pressure here, and it's gonna. I was like, oh, it's so bad to be powerless in that kind of situation is just is, I think, everyone's worst nightmare.
It's
no matter what scenario was playing out. If it's like your child, being hurt in some way or something like that, if you can't do anything to stop it, that's the ultimate like feeling. The feeling of powerlessness is just horrifying.
Yeah, like like those dreams that you have where you're like, oh, I wanted it to go that way, and it certainly didn't go that way, and there's nothing you can do anything about it. So,
that's certainly what I took from it, like, where it was like a nightmare dream, like maybe he was like thinking about Jesse and how like Jesse's not coming for him, but like here he is now, and this is what he's going to do once he gets here. You know, and something I want to mention about Dominic Cooper again, so good, and how Seth Rogen's. I watched the Comic-Con video.
Yeah,
the interview. Well, just the whole panel.
Yeah,
and Seth Rogen's like advice to him on how to act as Jesse is like Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights. Yeah. So like thinking about that and like kind of applying that to that scene, it's like, well, what if Coach Taylor walked in your bedroom and just started like making out with your girlfriend? Like that's like, it's so out of character, but like, and like if you can't do anything to stop it, like how horrible that is.
Well, and as he walks out of the bathroom, he's like, I hear you guys got a chemistry test coming up this week. You ready for it? Just like those comments. It's like,
it was so gross on every level.
Yeah, he really separated. He like made a really big gap between like him and the kids. Like, oh, I'm just this, I'm like I'm like taking care of you guys,
Yeah, and he really like the distinction between like man and boy was so severe, like so over the top in that scene that I feel like this is how an insecure teenage kid would feel. Like here comes this like tall, dark, handsome authority figure who like clearly is mature and further along in life, and like he's better than me in every way, is kind of like how Jesse felt in that scene. Is like this is what Eugene would kind of aspire to, is to be this kind of guy. And then it's so gross by the fact that he can act like the teacher. It's just like ew, just a nasty thoughts.
Yeah,
it was cringy.
Yeah.
But the
Tracy does her homework on the butt. That's my girl. Like he's like, he's like, that's I expect that from you.
They were probably like, I would imagine there was some laughing going on in this scene because it's a good coping mechanism for what's going on. It's just like laughing at the absurdity of it. But I'm sure that. Dominic Cooper seems like a pretty funny dude.
Yeah.
He does some facial gymnastics, as we've noted throughout this whole series so far. And I'm sure there were some takes there where some of those faces he was making was like, I told you I was coming, Eugene. And then, like some of those faces he's making, I'm sure that they all started laughing at some point because I wouldn't be able to contain myself. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Just that last frame of him going, smiling. I was like, oh, this is so funny. It's so dark, but Dominic Cooper is just pure gold.
Yep.
It's fun watching him be like, just watching Joseph Gilgan be the only funny one is like, he's amazing at it. I mean, he's incredible, but watching the rest of them have their moments to kind of be funny is really fun.
Yeah. I think that's about it for Act 4 until the final act. Are we good?
I think so.
All right. Act 5, Eugene gets dumped back into the group cell and finds out that he will be thrown into the hole if the superintendent discovers he shouldn't be there, according to Hitler at least. Hitler tells Eugene that he wants to help him escape. Tulip barges in on the Grail surveillance team, but they manage to hide everything, and Lara throws on a disguise, known as Jenny, I guess. Tulip is very inquisitive of the situation and the lack of furniture and a gun lying about, but in the end, she offers to go with Jenny to the Hurt Locker. Seems like Jenny's receptive to that, but who knows? Jesse's prayers and circuit works fall on deaf ears, especially when the dork docs find the reflection of a coffee pot in the slate in Mark Herlick's audition tape. The dork docs shred the disc when Jesse decides to abandon it, but in its last moments, we see that it says property of Grail Industries on the underside. So I'm going to stop there before we get to the Cassidy stuff, and we can kind of discuss what we've got here. So Hitler wants to help Eugene escape.
I think this is Hitler's plan.
Yeah, but I wonder why. Like what? I guess he clearly sees and knows that Eugene doesn't belong there. But
if Hitler was the janitor of hell, it seems like he probably knows a lot of the ins and outs of the place, and he may know a way to escape, like to legit escape hell. Mm-hmm. And I think that perhaps if he can help Eugene get out, he can come out behind him, kind of ride his coattails out. And he just needs the help of somebody who maybe somebody who's not supposed to be there is a legit person who can kind of cross over, and he can maybe come with him.
You just made me want this moment of Eugene reaching back to Hitler and being like, "Thank you, Mr. Hitler. Don't you want to come with me?" And Hitler being like, "No, I understand that I need to be here," or something that, which is like
that closes his character arc. You've shown me. No, I think that there's. Well, first of all, I loved the shot of Hitler's little face poking out from under the bunk bed. I thought that was so funny. You hear his voice, and I was like, "Where is he at?" And then just kind of pops around. I mean, again, like laughing at the image of Hitler is like weird. I mean, it's fine, I guess, to look at it in that context. But I think that Hitler, this version of Hitler anyway, or maybe the real version, is a little craftier than maybe we're giving him credit for. And I think maybe his posing as sympathetic and wounded, being able to be beaten down by Tyler is all a ruse to try to get
out,
to get somebody on his side and to get out, because there may very well be a scene later on where he just beats the shit out of Tyler and is like, "I'm Adolf Hitler, dude. Like, I don't take shit off you." Yeah. And tries to get out and back into the world, whether it be to try to pick up where he left off. I mean, could you imagine if Adolf Hitler showed up today?
Yeah, I don't know.
What the hell would happen?
I don't know.
Ugh. It's right. It's a scary thought. Like,
absolutely.
If a hellmouth opened up somewhere and Hitler crawled out and was back, what the hell would happen?
Yeah.
I'm assuming somebody would just shoot him in the head, and like that would be it. But I don't know, man. It would cause a scene. Traffic would stop.
Maybe all he wants to do is come back out and make some art. In the Preacher universe.
Yeah. Perhaps that's right. Right. Maybe he just wants to go back to that restaurant and finish that scene. I don't know. He's like Captain America, but Hitler. He's just been frozen in time since the 40s, and he's going to come into the modern world. And Samuel L. Jackson will recruit him into a team of reformed super dictator villains.
Yes.
No, I don't know, but I think that a lot of my complaints about Hitler being somewhat sympathetic are going to be rectified, because I think he's up to no good.
Interesting.
Started making trouble in the neighborhood.
Interesting. I did not see that myself, but I can certainly see that happening.
Call me crazy. I don't trust that Hitler fellow, though.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
I did like that scene, though. Of his face. That made me laugh. That made me chuckle. Just the blocking of that was really funny.
Any thoughts on
I like that they're sleeping on bunk beds, too.
What do you think he's doing? What do you think Hitler's doing?
I really don't know. And that's, I think Nick's explanation makes a lot of logical sense, but the idea that he sees Eugene and is like, "Yeah, you don't belong here." Like, I guess that makes sense, but having an ulterior motive, I think, ultimately would make it logically follow for me.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like he wants to use him in some way. He wants to either escape himself or maybe use Eugene for evil. Maybe more evil. I don't know.
And maybe in that overarching sense of why they're using Hitler, the idea that they could endear us to Hitler to make him seem sympathetic and then pull the rug out on us with him in the end, I think that would explain, like, as you said, I think all your fears about them using Hitler go away.
Now they're starting to make more sense.
Yeah.
Well, even if you can make someone who's good like Eugene think somebody like Hitler is good, then maybe they're not. Maybe their descent into not being so good will be easier. Yeah. Like if they can look at things from Hitler's POV, then perhaps they can be swayed in other nastier ways too.
That's true. So Tulip barging in on Lara, on Featherstone and Hoover. Mm-hmm. Hoover forgetting to pull the gun away. Pretty good.
Classic Hoover.
Yeah. Yes. She shoots him a look like, "God, you idiot."
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know if there's too much to read into in that scene.
I think Tulip is a little hip to something being off.
Yeah, she's observant,
My mentioning her being very inquisitory about it all is kind of like is she aware that there's people here doing something that they don't want her to know about, essentially.
Yeah. So maybe she is trying to get close to them. Maybe she's like to sniff them out or something like that.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely presented as though Featherstone thinks she has the upper hand in this moment, because she kind of said like she wanted to. I forgot the phrase she used with Hoover, but she said something about like infiltrating them from the inside or something. Intimate. Yeah. It's a good way. And I think she thinks if she can make some inroads with Tulip, she can get closer to Jesse.
Yeah, which makes sense for sure.
Yeah. But the the big giant monitor sitting on the table, like and Tulip's like a TV, and she's kind of like, it makes an excuse. I was like, that's not a TV, that's a monitor, and Tulip will know the difference.
Right.
The
Julie-Anne Emery.
The costuming and Julie-Anne Emery's ability to look like a completely different person.
Oh my God.
Unreal.
Insanity.
Wow. Is this girl not Fatale? Is she not?
Yeah, she's absolutely.
It's perfect.
She's 100%.
She'd be so good.
Yeah.
Like even when she shuts the door and then turns around, I was like, it's a different person.
Yeah.
Like, the look on her face, everything. She was back into Featherstone, and I was like, this is remarkable.
Yeah.
Like her ability to just, even everything. Like I was like, man, this is an immensely gifted actress.
And I didn't like looking at her at first. I was like, God, there's something strikingly different about her, but I don't quite know what it is. I think it must have been her eye color or something like that. Because I feel like she has like maybe blue contacts in when she's Jenny, as opposed to. I don't know this for sure. I'd have to go back and take a look at it, but that. Like, there's something very strikingly different about her face that I couldn't put my finger on.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's just
she just brings it.
I think she's just that good. I think it's and even just her posture, the way just everything is different. I think that's just the ability of a really gifted actor whose face we don't know intimately,
who's using their entire body as their in their performance.
Yeah, and I mean, and we all know wigs. Good wigs can do amazing stuff.
Yeah,
we know shitty wigs can distract
and also do amazing.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I love a good shitty wig for sure. But she's remarkable. I was like, that is so good.
Yeah,
like, what a great moment. She's what a great character to have. Somebody who's that just all, like I said, she's a badass.
Yep.
She's like a really good field agent. She would be like the dream right hand of Hairstar.
Yes.
Yeah.
She would pass that test in the seduction scene, and she would be good at like probably all that stuff. Like, you could tell why she's in the Grail.
Yeah.
Hoover, don't know.
No, yeah, right.
I'm even just on IMDb's cast list right now. I'm just looking at Hoover's picture and I'm like laughing.
Yeah.
He just is so perfect.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really cool scene. I like that. I think we're almost sort of set up in this moment to write Tulip off as being totally checked out. Like, she invites her to the Hurt Locker and everything.
Yeah.
And I think we're supposed to think, like, oh, Tulip's getting fooled. But I think Tulip's pretty wily. Mm-hmm. If she's bringing her to the Hurt Locker just to point a gun at her and say, tell me who you are, like, I wouldn't be too surprised.
That'd be pretty good.
That'd be awesome.
Or in a bar full of her friends, because she keeps like they're probably all her buds now.
She's been there all the time.
Yeah, they could be like, all right, boys, aim at her head, and then like interrogate her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the Grail in this episode?
I can't believe nobody would notice the property of Grail Industries on the DVD. Like, if Jesse's that much of a dope that he didn't at least look at the disc to see if it's in it. Like, that was surprising because it's pretty bold on the back of that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean.
I love it, and I loved the ad in the background for Grail Industries as like sort of the what equivalent could we attribute it to?
Just like a big conglomerate, like
almost like
know.
Tesla or something.
It's kind of like a it's like an Exxon Mobil, like kind of like that kind of huge oil magnate. We love the environment and people and everything.
And we secretly own tons of the stuff that you use probably through like a series of like shell companies and crap like that.
Johnson & Johnson or something like that.
Exactly. They own so much and you don't even know it. Yeah, I loved that detail in the background. I loved that it ended with a shot of an atomic bomb. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It was a beautiful shot with Jesse right in the middle and everything. But to address Mike's email, we're not necessarily going to read it, I don't think, but I love what you had to say about the Grail, Mike. It was very good.
Me shitting when I realized what the Grail is actually.
You're just he's excited for Alex to learn more, as am I. Like, I think part of the whole reason we started this podcast, we floated it with the premise of like, what if we talk about it? I have read it and you haven't.
Yeah,
like, it'll be fun for both of us, I think. And I know a huge part of the fun for me is watching Alex turn the next corner and see what's there. It's so great.
Yeah.
And in some instances for me too, like, and some things have deviated in big ways.
Yeah.
But yes, I am so stoked for like more Grail. Like, I missed Hairstar in this episode. I loved everything with Featherstone and Hoover.
Yeah. I'm sad about the destruction of Mark Herlich's audition tape.
Yeah.
This might be it.
It was
that was our foreskin. It was our joke.
Yeah, we will always bring that back whenever we can.
R.I.P. in peace.
When they make the slate clear, slate, the top boxes on the slate says roll, right? As in like almost like what roll of film you're on, right? Mm-hmm. But it says in the show, it says roll, and it just says God in caps.
I saw that,
which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And it just says
ROLL.
Yeah, roll, but then it says God and Mark Harelick, and those are the only things that are marked on the slate, which I thought was hilarious.
Funny. I mean, people write a lot of junk on the slate. If it's not applicable, you can fill something else in the field. But that is funny.
Yeah,
roll God, something somebody dopey would write on there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. That's important. I mean, the Grail are in the know. Obviously.
Yeah. Why are the Grail the ones auditioning people for God's replacement?
And then shooting him to send him into heaven.
Yeah, like I guess that's my question to you guys, and I will fully accept a no comment. But the idea that, I mean, we learned last week that the Grail, like part of the Grail's mission is to safeguard Jesus's bloodline, essentially. Mm-hmm. The idea that God is conscripting them or employing them to do something for him in order to allow him to abdicate his position. Is that representative? Like, is that in the comics? Do you want to give me like a yes or no or a no comment? Like what?
I don't know. A lot of big words there, man. What?
Like that. Because that was one of my questions that I wrote down is who are the people that are auditioning God? And it's the Grail. Like, it's got to be.
We thought before that it was angels. Like, we thought...
Yeah.
Angels on Earth somehow, obviously, like Fiora and DeBlanc, but...
Well, based solely on what the show has to say.
Yeah.
Because the disc is the property of Grail doesn't necessarily mean that was Grail.
Yeah.
However, I think that it's pretty safe to assume that it was.
Well, yeah, because if this is the tape that was sent back to Mark Harelick's agents after requesting the audition.
Yes. That's true. Well, so when Star is trying out for the Grail, and in his episode, when he's clued into the mission of the Grail, what does his superior tell him is the mission of the Grail? Do you recall? Like he says,
they're there to shepherd the apocalypse. Essentially, was what if I'm remembering correctly.
They're there to safeguard the legacy.
So I guess in a way, maybe God was like, "Hey guys, it's time."
Well,
but then why would God come down to Earth? I don't.
I think the show is being truthful to you in that God doesn't want to be found necessarily.
Yeah.
I think God, like the one guy says earlier in the season in the club, like he came for the jazz kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the woman says that. I think that what you're... Based on what the show is telling you and the information that exists already in the show, essentially, the absence of God, I think, could be interpreted as the coming of the end of time.
Yeah.
So
certainly
there is some sort of line of communication between heaven and the Grail. So it's almost as though, I don't know, I guess I probably shouldn't talk any further about it because I'm not sure what I'm extrapolating out of the show and where it runs over with my knowledge of the book.
That's fine.
So I might be inadvertently spoiling something that I don't think is a spoiler.
Yeah, right. It's hard to. You have to tiptoe around it, but it's like maybe I don't know. I will just say this: God works in mysterious ways because
that works.
Because
and God quits work in mysterious ways.
Yeah, because it seems like they needed a replacement for God, and God put that into motion, and maybe He used the Grail because the Grail had the connection to.
They have some kind of knowledge.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's something
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Actually, I think you and I almost could, Lance. You and I could talk a little more openly about this because I don't think this level of communication between the Grail and heaven, I'll use in quotes because that term could be used very broadly.
Yeah,
I don't think that open line of communication necessarily exists
in the comics.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can edit that out if you want to.
No, and I think that's okay.
We may get an email from Mike, our resident lore master,
yes,
to correct or
quality assurance
or confirm.
As we've
yes,
yeah. But that's okay. We don't have to talk about it too much because I know that's tiptoeing very close to potentially dangerous territory. But that's.
I think it's good. It's good to assume that Grail is omnipotent.
Okay.
If not even more than God, like in terms of like how our mortal material world is affected.
Yeah.
Grail is all seeing and far reaching.
Yeah, they control a lot. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Anything else about everything before the Cassidy Denis?
I think this is a great episode already. Like I actually really loved this one, even though it is a kind of, it's not a lot of nothing. Not a lot happens.
It's all character development,
but it's great stuff. Like there have been episodes that were similar in terms of like development of the plot, advancement of the plot. But I think this one was just tremendous.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess we can get on to the final moment of the show. We do have Cassidy looking after Denis a little bit more. Denis actually uses English for the first time that we see him. He says, "Papa, please," to Cassidy and looks at him. But, obviously Cassidy just kind of looks at him before it cuts away. But then finally, Cassidy calls Seamus, identifying himself as Proinsias, which is the Irish version of Francis. Almost as if he's asking permission or guidance on whether or not to turn Denis. Seamus advises against it, but Cass walks into Denis' room singing Scarlet the Harlot once again with a dramatic music cue that must mean mischief is afoot.
And a very intense look on his face.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Seamus, is this somebody you're familiar with as comic book readers? Yes or no?
We don't know necessarily who Seamus is, but we... Actually, I have no idea. Like I could posit some guesses, but there's really no way of knowing for sure until the show decides to reveal it.
Okay, so there's nobody named Seamus in the books.
There might be in. Lance is either looking it up or he's going to text me. I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, so there may be, but it's not. Basically, if there is a Seamus in the books, they're not this character. Okay. It's just somebody who's being changed for
because
the show.
It couldn't be.
Maybe not. So basically, no. Neither Lance nor I can at all confirm or deny who Seamus might be. We actually mean that. Not just spin.
My kind of interpretation of who Seamus was kind of. I was expecting it to maybe be the person who sired Cassidy.
Okay.
The person who made him and turned him into a vampire. Yeah. Was kind of my gut feeling about the situation. I don't really know if that's correct. That's kind of a guess on my part.
Sorry. That's a good guess. I think that's certainly a logical guess, but it definitely would raise a weird question as to like how vampire society works. You know what I mean? Like it would change the nature of Cassidy's origin deeply.
Okay.
Because Cassidy's origin as a vampire in the comic is horrible. Like it's freaky shit. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget when I was reading that book and I got to that part because it's stuck with me. I mean, it's really, really well done.
Okay.
And it's not a cool moment. And
so the idea that he would have a good relationship with the person who sired him
it would turn the birth of becoming a vampire into something very different, I think.
Okay. Well, and I, from my experiences watching Buffy, maybe it's not necessarily somebody who sired him, but the person who shepherded him into being a vampire.
Yeah. I almost think it might be somebody who he knows but isn't a vampire. Somebody who knows him well but isn't.
Well, and I guess my reasoning in thinking that it was somebody who is because like Seamus asks Cassidy like what is his general disposition of like
no that's a very interesting question
as if that's like what would you expect him to be like as a vampire 300 years from now kind of situation. Mm-hmm. So that that was kind of where I got that out of. But it,
What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely someone who knows him well enough to give him the advice that he gives him to say, like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't exactly know, what if he's like him or not.
Yeah.
And knows him well enough to like make the quip about him, like, I assume you have a few kids running around, like he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And apparently it's somebody that Cassidy's always going to for money.
Yeah,
or has in the past.
I think that you raise a great point with his question about his general disposition, because perhaps vampires are... Maybe there's enough of an organized society where they keep their numbers...
They make a judgment call.
And they keep their numbers proportionate.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to remain low-key enough and yet still... because it seems like vampires exist unbeknownst in a way.
Yeah.
And they don't want to become exposed.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But Cassidy doesn't seem like a good candidate to become a vampire.
Yeah.
So...
Well, and maybe back then...
Maybe he was a mistake. Maybe Cassidy is kind of like the runt of the litter, so to speak, or like kind of the black sheep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who maybe accidentally, or somebody strayed and turned him into one, but they took him in anyway.
Yeah.
There is, if it's going down that path, that will be very interesting, and it will make for yet another subplot for the show, which I don't know that we necessarily need, because if they stick with his origin from the book, it's simple, it's effective. And it's very enlightening, and it's killer. I mean, it's really good. Yeah. But like that, Lance, we can talk about later.
For sure.
For sure.
a couple things. So in the Comic-Con panel, so, like I think Chris Hardwick asked, like, Cassidy's not really a vampire, and then Seth Rogen goes, well, there's some vampire-y stuff coming up. So I think.
Why would you say he's not a vampire?
He's not. I mean, he's not like a traditional vampire. I think even you guys talked about that. Like you said, like something. He's like a very low key. Like
he's not thirsting after
doesn't
humans.
Feel the hunger.
Okay. Like just the two things. It's like needs blood.
Stays out of the sun.
Like that's it. It's like very. Just he ticks a few of the boxes.
Yeah, that's true. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily our idea of what a vampire traditionally is. However, I think dismissing it by saying he's not a vampire is interesting, because like vampires aren't real, so we can't say like
what we
all
think
interpretations of vampires have been different in the sense of like they sparkle in twilight. Some of them aren't visible in mirrors, but others are. So it's always kind of like the every universe has its own version of vampires.
So perhaps this is what vampires are in the preacher world.
Shout out to What We Do in the Shadows, which is a great vampire comedy.
It's on. Is it on Netflix? It just got added to Netflix, I think. Yeah. Please watch What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah.
Or it's on Amazon. I don't know. It's on one of those.
It's on one of them. Yeah, it might be Amazon.
Yeah, Proinsias we should probably talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Name change at some point in history, I guess, right? But there's not a whole lot else to for me to talk about.
Do you want us to talk about that at all?
I don't know if I do or not. Are you happy to see it? I can ask you questions.
Yeah.
Are you happy to hear that name?
Yes.
Is it revealed in a similar manner in the books?
No.
In the books, it's precious in the books how it's done.
Yes.
Okay.
And
this is kind of, it's not cheap. It's cool. Like, it's enticing.
Yeah.
The thing is, if I was watching this show and I heard him say, I'd be like, what did he say? Like, I wouldn't know that's a name.
Yeah. I got Mike's email, his 2-word review, and I read that, and I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, I knew what a Zagnut was, but I was like, what is he talking about?
Is that another candy bar?
Yeah. So then watching it, I was like, oh, like I had the subtitles turned on, and then he said it there, and I was like, wait a second, and I rewound it, and I looked at it again. I was like, that's what Mike was talking about.
I saw Mike's email drop into my phone before I watched the episode, and when I saw him say Zagnut, I was like, what the hell? I saw him say Proinsias, and I was like, oh boy. Good. I was really excited. And then it happened, and I was like, well, that's cool, but it's not the same way like Lance said that it's done in the books, and in the books it's really awesome. And it's funny.
It's just funny.
So Proinsias is his real first name.
Yeah.
That is his legal, that's his birth name.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
So it's the fact that he refers to that he doesn't say it's Cassidy, it's Proinsias, also is very telling that this person knows
has
him.
been around for a while.
Yeah, it goes back when.
But
so that is also some more.
It's more sprinkling of breadcrumbs. Yeah. No, I'm
other Reese's Pieces for the trail of us ETs just wandering through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was cool to hear it. I definitely. That's a moment I was waiting for because I love that issue.
Yeah, definitely.
There's basically. So I've talked about this on the show with you, Alex, several times, that Cassidy is very like surface level character for like the first maybe like 12 issues or something like that.
And then you get some backstory.
And then you get one issue that's pretty much about Cassidy.
Yep.
And it's mostly him talking about his past, and it's got some twists and some reveals in it that are fantastic. Is it 2 issues or just 1?
I think it's 2.
I think it is.
It goes across.
I think it is as well.
Yeah.
And it's so well done. And I remember the first time I read it, and you read it and you're thinking this thing, and then it's another thing, and then you're thinking this thing, and it's another thing, and it's nice, and it's just a really good yarn. And it could make for a very compelling entire episode of this show. And it also deepens the bond and the friendship between Cassidy and Jesse.
For sure.
Tremendously. And they don't really seem to like each other very much right now in the show, which is still kind of a drag. Like, Tulip and Tulip and Jesse being at odds is one thing, and like I'm not saying I like it, but the tension is fine between them. I kind of am like, choose one right now. You know what I mean? Because like Jesse by himself, like all these 3 characters kind of marooned on their own islands, is kind of a bummer. Yeah, like it's nice when they have one or the other to kind of lean on. Yep. So I'm looking for that hardcore like Jesse Cassidy bro out that we still haven't really.
Yeah, Cass and Tulip have a little bit of that at the moment, but between Jesse's relationship,
and I think it's because they both love Jesse so much, and he's kind of shirking them both.
Well, and they're all dealing with a lot right now, like Tulip dealing with the mortality or whatever it happens to be that all is, and Cassidy dealing with Denis. And Jesse headstrong going like, I need to find God, is clearly like, it's like nobody's really...
Well, yeah, and I mean, Jesse's quest is, it's not just like a whodunit or a missing persons case. I mean, his life and his identity revolve around the belief that God sits on the throne and watches over us. Yeah. And I think, if you're a non-believer of any kind, I think it's easy to look at somebody in that position and be like, so what? Like, deal with it. But if you're a believer and you're devout and you've accepted that, and it's a thing that matters to you tremendously, and that rug is pulled out from under you, your whole world would come crashing down, because you literally, you exist with the belief that after you die, you go up there and you get to be there for eternity, and you've served and been good and faithful. And if that's not the case anymore, like, oh my God, like, how would that feel? You know what I mean? And I think it's an amazing question, and it's really fun to think about. And I think in episode 9 of the first season, during the big God Mark Herlick scene, which is so funny, it's such a hilarious scene. But and we talked about this in our episode, like, how would that feel? Yeah, well, and then watching the events of episode 10, exactly, and seeing the depravity that occurs, and a lot of it's played for laughs, but a lot of it is very very real. And I think that I do kind of miss that question. Is it almost like Mike said about Genesis? It feels like a lot of the really important things about the story are getting sort of pushed aside. And I'm still struggling with... struggling is not the right word, because it's really not that big of a deal. But Tulip and Cassidy, especially Tulip, like, we're still spending a lot of time circling the drain of whatever this particular problem is with her. And I'm kind of ready to either resolve it and move on, or at least get into it more. Yeah. Because I think, there's obviously this duality between... the book and the show, and I have the 2 fictions in my mind, where you have the one, and Lance is doing a better job, I think, of dealing with the show than I am. I don't know about that. Not that I don't like it, but I think that in my mind I still have these questions of, like, I love the God story and the questions that raises so much from the books that it feels like it's really missing from the show. Yeah, and I think the comics, the deep things that
Jesse can say to himself or say to somebody else. Really, when you see him on the page and you read about them, and like Bruce made a comment about like how you can, when you read a comic book, you have more time to think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
that's a great point.
So, and the TV show goes pretty fast.
And you can't, I mean, I have been in that situation, I think, as we all have, where if you're reading a comic book or even just a book, you can stop for a second and you can drop your bookmark in there and you can think about what you just read, or like, come back to it later and resume. But with the show, obviously you can't necessarily, I mean, who's going to pause the TV and go, wow, and think about what you just experienced, you know what I mean? Yeah. Unless you're fortunate enough to have a terrific podcast and great co-hosts to talk with, to sort through these complex feelings that Preacher raises.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like therapy, really.
Yes.
Just all get a front row seat.
Yep.
No, I'm ready for a little bit more of that. I'm ready for some of those big questions, and I think I just want the show to be asking those questions of viewers. You know what I mean? Like I think I'm coming to the table with this because I've read it in the book, and the book raises it a little bit more bluntly. Which again is something that can happen in that medium. It's different mediums. You can't in a comic book you can have a character grab somebody and shake them by the collar and be like, "What do you mean God's not in heaven?" But in the show, it can come across as like stupid.
Yeah.
So I understand that there are these challenges, but I think there's got to be a way to weave a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think
now that we have the Grail on the scene, we're probably going to get a lot more of it.
We got a little bit of that, and I don't. Maybe the execution was a little bit poor, as we've talked about in the past couple episodes. But the idea of selling part of your soul.
Yeah.
That's certainly there, but I don't think they hit it in a way that makes us think about it ourselves. It seemed so outlandish to us that, especially in the way that I think we all think about souls, and that it's not necessarily tangible and we don't know what it is. So giving it that like face of in your vein can be taken away by a needle is a disconnect that doesn't allow us to be like, what would I sell my soul for? And what do I think it would be worth to somebody else, kind of thing, which is certainly in that episode, but it doesn't hit you in a way that makes you want to reflect on it.
Yeah, and it's gone for now.
Yeah.
Like you either need to continue to string that out in a way that's consistent so it's on our mind, or close it off, because like... Which
I guess Jesse does string it along a little bit here, because he does pray to God and say, I gave part of my soul away for you. But...
And it is good that that's on his radar. we were unsure.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can raise questions like that in like a Twilight Zone episode, and you have a beginning, a middle, and an end within this certain time period, and it'll leave you thinking. Like,
yeah.
But I dare say no one left that episode of Preacher going, wow, what is my soul worth?
No.
What did I sell it for?
No.
Yeah.
So while it is a great...
They made it cool, where it was just like, it was like, what about this shop? What about that shop?
Yeah.
They made it cool. Like The Matrix. It was just cool.
I know, right?
It was cool to shoot up a building lobby.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a lot of flash over the top of it that kind of masks the questions. And I think in a way, if that's Rogan and Goldberg's kind of thesis, that they can drop these huge things on us, and people are dumb enough in real life to not even think about it, like the people in the show.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, the events of episode 10 of season 1 should be horrifying, but like, I think a lot of it, like I said, it's played for laughs. And I mean, it's okay to laugh at it. That's kind of the reaction that you're supposed to have. But it's funny that that's kind of what they choose to do, is like make you laugh about it rather than make you actually think about it.
Yeah.
We got way off anyway. My bad.
Well, and I guess the final question we can ask, do you guys feel that Cassidy is going to turn Denis?
I don't think so, personally.
You don't think so?
It's just a powerhouse of acting that you don't know. I mean,
yeah.
because when he walks up to him, Cassidy's eyes on Denis is like, I'm about to do something to you. And I don't know if it's I'm going to bite you or if I'm going to smother you.
Yeah.
So that's, and then Denis, like, kind of acting is reacting.
What if the next episode we take a back seat and we get Cassidy backstory, and then the following episode starts with him strangling Denis?
That'd be baller.
Yeah.
But
that'd be so boss.
Because that feels like a very AMC thing to do. Of like, we're gonna make you wait just another episode to.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I even kind of looked. I always see the first few seconds of the next week on, and then my app tries to rewatch the first episode or something.
Yeah.
I watched the first few seconds of it, and I was like looking for any hint of Denis.
Yeah.
I actually just thought of something that might happen, and I can't talk to you about it, unfortunately.
Okay. That's
fine. I'll have to talk to Lance about it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Outside of your house. Gotcha. But I don't. Based on just what the show did, I don't think so, because I think that the song is the indicator.
The music,
because he sang the song when he brought him into the world, and I think he's singing it to him as he's going to take him out.
Interesting.
Yeah. However, if Cassidy takes responsibility for this guy and actually does something, it kind of in a way runs contrary to his character. Cassidy's definitely I'd rather talk my way out of it or have somebody else clean it up kind of guy.
Yeah.
And in the show, he seems to be a little bit more motivated than that. So it would work for TV Cassidy for sure. In the books, he would probably not have even stuck around this long with his son. He would have been like, oh, he's sick. I'm out of here. That's gross.
Peace out.
I don't like sick people.
That's fair.
So the song seemed to be the thing for me that he's kind of like lullabying him out. And the look on Dennis's face is like, he looks excited. I think either way, he's
you're going to do something about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thank you for finally being a dad and taking charge in some way.
Yeah.
That was so sad. Man, I forgot the name of the actor who plays Dennis again, but he looked like a little kid in so many of those moments. And I was like, man, he really... this feels like father and son, and not in the way that would normally be depicted. Yeah. Like it was really good. The chemistry between those two is terrific, even though they're not even speaking the same language. Like, it was just fantastic.
Papa. Yeah. That was really...
Oh, man, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Ronald Gutman is the actor who plays Denis.
Yeah, he did look like a little kid. Yeah. He was like Jack. He's like really 9 years old, but super old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all that we got.
What do you think?
I walked into this episode feeling very confident that he was going to turn him.
Really?
But I think it's mostly just because of the dramatic music stab. Because I want to believe that they're not going to cheat us like that, but I think they entirely could.
You mean cheat us if he killed him?
No, cheat us in the way of they're leading us to believe that, and I feel like the music sells that he's going to... Because I didn't even necessarily think, well, maybe he's going to kill him. I just kind of thought, like, he walked in there and was like, Seamus told me not to, but I think this is what I need to do.
It would be the irresponsible thing to do.
Exactly.
Which would be pretty in line with Cassidy as well. Or it might be the easier thing to do for him.
Yes.
So that's a good point.
Rather than to because he reminisces with Tulip and very much says everybody you love or care about is going to die and you won't. Like the idea that for once Cassidy's like, I'm not going to let this person die.
Well, that is interesting because Cassidy doesn't care about him.
Yeah, exactly.
He might love him on like a primal level of like you are my family. You are my offspring and I've created you in some way. But that's a good point. He may... I think I don't want him to because I don't necessarily want more subplot running around out there. Yeah. But there's an arc later in the comics that kind of has to do with some of what we're tiptoeing around in this portion of the show. And I think that if he does turn him, it might lead us there. Okay. So I could see that happening. We may not even know, actually. Like... The next episode, Dennis might be gone. All traces of him might be gone. And they might say, like, what happened to Dennis? And Cass might just be like, oh, he's gone. And they may interpret that their own way, and we won't know ever.
Yeah, much like the I took him down that Jesse did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Or when he said to Tulip about Saint of Killers, he's not around anymore.
Yeah. Well, we went super long. But I think we had a lot of good discussion. I did not I kind of agreed with Brian going into this discussion that we had. I did not necessarily enjoy this episode, but now that I've realized that there was a lot of character stuff here, I'm okay with the lack of plot.
Brian didn't like this one?
Brian did not. Yeah, Brian's the one who said Brian said, just watch Holes, and frankly, as much as I love the series so far, I was really frustrated with the lack of plot development.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You read that earlier. I thought he was talking about a different episode.
No,
okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, he was talking about this week.
For some reason, some of the feed... So Alex just kind of recently looped me into the feedback channel, and some of it... I get disoriented.
It's hard because
sometimes.
we get people responding to our episode about last week's show and then also telling us about what they thought about this week's, which I think that's totally cool. I just probably need to delineate it a little bit. And talk about it.
The other confusing thing is just because sometimes I open it on my phone and it's already marked as read. Yeah. Because you've read it. Yeah. So then I'm like, well, wait. And then I look and I have to go to the top of the thread. And sometimes it just gets lost and I'm like, this isn't worth it. Alex will tell me later. So maybe we need to have some sort of forwarding system set up so that I
can add it to forward to you.
Whatever. We'll figure it out. Nobody needs to hear about the inner... about hell breaking down here on this end. The balance has been tipped.
Yes.
There's a new inbox added and it's screwing everything up. Eugene has hit my iPhone.
But overall... Lance, did you enjoy the episode?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, not a lot of plot, but it's all character.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe the key to enjoying this one is being able to appreciate that character stuff, and hopefully maybe Brian will feel a little bit better about it if he made it through this 2-hour episode of Gone to Texas. But,
having Lance here is helpful.
Yes.
Or not.
No, it's fantastic.
I'm glad you like it. I mean, I'm glad you're still along for the ride.
Yeah. I want to see where it goes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I want to see what the cliffhanger is that we're about to.
You know something? And I have an idea about what it is. And if they say that the comic people will know it, I'm just like, oh my God. Like, are you about to do that to everybody?
Interesting.
So
I'm trying to think of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things.
There's so many things it could be.
With where we are presently.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
This is getting into your parking lot conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I just like the idea of somebody listening to this podcast just hearing us go,
They're like, what are they thinking?
Oh, man. Just sighing repeatedly and locking eyes with each other across the table.
Once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast on g2tpodcast.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We're G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can email us g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our podcast and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Preacher or our podcast. The Midwest Podcast Network has other shows about video games, horror movies, and HBO's Westworld. Find out more about these shows as well as how to support the network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. We just did a commentary track for the movie called Sleepaway Camp for Horror Movie Yearbook. So go check out Horror Movie Yearbook and give that a watch if you're a fan of that movie. And our theme music is the song All In by The Red Thread, and it is being used under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. That's all for this episode of Gone to Texas. We can't wait to see what next week's episode brings. But until then, go forth and speak the good word.